Hey Nick, how are you?
Hey there, I'm doing fine.
Happy Friday.
Yeah, huh?
Still no word on anything going on with PFAS. It's kind of a eerie quiet.
Yeah, huh? Well, honestly, it may not have been designed that way, but I don't necessarily have a problem with everything being put on hold for a while. I just don't think we're ready to commit the kind of money it would take to even address drinking water, but you're just at the
Mhm.
water treatment plants, let alone any other media that might be involved. And then, frankly, the last time I talked to Chris Teef, he said we're all going to die, but it probably ain't going to be from PFAS.
Yeah,
So, I wonder if it's all to do about nothing except at facilities that actually manufactured it and dumped it in, ponds
yeah,
outside and stuff. So maybe it's better that we take a pause on it all.
yeah, yeah. I agree. Hello, Shaw.
Jeff?
Hey, Brent.
Good morning. How you doing?
Doing great.
We had our meeting with South Florida yesterday. There was some folks asking questions about Senate Bill 7002, as you might
Hmm.
imagine.
Hmm.
And everyone agreed that next year in committee weeks, we want to ask about how we can change the mileage. Even the district staff was like, we recognize this is too low and we think you guys should get better rates. So if
And
we
did
can put that on the to-do list for next session's committee weeks or whatever.
I hear you loud and clear? Does the district believe it's set statutorily?
Oh,
Yes.
hey,
Yes. Okay.
Shaw's here.
Hi,
Going
Shaw.
back. How you doing?
I didn't know. Yeah, they said the statute that they reference, is it 112.601 or something? I don't know.
I'm gonna write it down when I have a chance.
Yeah, it's 44 and a
112.
half cents a mile and it kind of sucks for everybody. There was also a comment that 7002 has some kind of a low bid requirement for projects even that are design services, and people were asking if that was a CCNA issue. I wasn't familiar with that piece of it. I just knew about the schedule and things.
When Alan pops on, we can get the official kind of status of that particular
Mhm.
issue. It's been discussed and discussed on the CLGR calls, and I think the our attorney looked at it and I think rendered an opinion on it. So
Okay.
it's a topic that that group is aware of.
I
And then
figured as much.
on the general bill call after this one, I'm sure that they'll talk about it if you want to, if you have the ability to hang on and watch
Sure.
that one.
He's on,
I've
Jeff.
listened. Hey, how are you?
Hey, Brent, this is Alan. Hey, there's some language in there. It's not well written, but what it does is it mentions CCNA, but in the context of they want contractors, design professionals, and others to basically do a 10-year guarantee. On and the Senate president will bring up a reservoir. There's a reservoir somewhere here in this state that didn't do what it was supposed to do. Um, the
There's a
problem with that
couple.
is, yeah, our statute of repose is 7 years. So what people would have to do when I talk to our attorney is it says something to the effect of they would need to put up a bond for the 10-year warranty or whatever you want to
Mm.
call it, which our people don't typically do bonds, but it says it also adds in or a similar financial instrument that achieves the same purpose. And so our attorney was like, yeah, it could be professional liability, but that's going to end, at 7 years. He goes, so
Right.
there could be like a warranty bond or something like that purchased for the other 3 years. And it doesn't affect, it's not a low bid requirement. It doesn't affect the price component of CCNA. Basically then what the language says for those that are covered under 287.055, the water management district can, use that in their, rank in the qualifications that, yes, this company is able to provide the 10 years. But it's not low bid.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Alan. I knew you'd do a better job
Sure.
at that than I would.
Brent, do you think
I've
we
read
need
it once
to
or
get? Do you think we need to get back to the Water Resources Committee and explain that to them? Or can we ask Alan to write something and we can forward that to them?
Yeah, if there's just a short, it sounds like there was an opinion that was rendered or some advisement from the council that reviewed it. If there's something like that I could pass along, that'd be good.
Thank you.
All right, well, it's 9:16. Let's dive in. And that bill is on the list anyway, so we'll talk about it some more. So good morning and welcome to the end of week 5. Before I dive into the bills, let me just mention that week 6 on the Senate, they're already not calendaring any meetings of the Environmental and Natural Resources Committee. So bills that have not made it through to at least their second stop to the Appropriations Subcommittee on Ag, Environment, and General Government, then they effectively have no path forward. So this is the Appropriations Subcommittee here that I've highlighted. It's meeting on Thursday. Again, if a bill has, on the Senate side, has made it through to at least that second stop, then it could still theoretically have a path forward. And then these Rules and Fiscal Policy Committees, this is like the General Appropriations Committee, the big Appropriations Committee, and the big Rules Committee for bills that don't have an appropriations issue. These are the big committees that will be, basically churning a lot of bills through on their last stops on the way to the floor. Starting in week 7, there won't be any more subcommittee bills, subcommittees meeting. So this is the House schedule. They still have a Natural Resources and Disaster Subcommittee scheduled for Tuesday. I think that's going to be the last meeting of that committee. This is the committee number 1 in a three committee process. This is their budget subcommittee here. It's meeting on Monday, and then State Affairs and Ways and Means are the big committees. So they're all meeting Monday and Tuesday in the House. And I think, again, I think that'll be the last meetings of the subcommittees. Or are you commenting? Okay, no, just checking out. Okay, so let's dive into bills. I've got the tracker went out last night. As with prior weeks, this is organized by kind of last activity. I ran this about 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon, so maybe a little bit of action since then, but this is pretty well caught up. I also put a couple more comments here just to help be a better reference, I think, as we're working our way through this. So we've talked about this one before. Former phosphate mining lands creates some liability relief for builders and developers who have followed all of their radon requirements, in developing lands that may have been impacted by phosphate mining. There was a little bit of pushback from the trial bar at one of the meetings I attended, and this was heard, but it's still making its way through. It's on the last stop in the House, and the companion bill 832 is also at the last stop in the Senate. I'm not saying it will pass, but it's making good progress. Here's 7002. It passed its last stop and is on the floor in the Senate. The companion bill was lagging, and we talked about this last week, that it had not been heard yet. And, there's some risk. Update being shown is not the one on the FES website. Anita, maybe refresh. It was just posted late last night, so Amanda or Laura would have posted it. If it's not been posted yet for some reason, we'll get it out to you. Sorry about that. So Water Management District 1169 was the House version that's run by Bill Connerly, PE, in the House. He did get it through the first committee stop earlier this week. And so it still has a good path forward in the House. Still, he confirmed to me in a conversation that he's running this at the request of the Speaker. So this is one of these bills that is probably a bargaining chip in the appropriations negotiations between the House and the Senate. It's certainly a Senate president's priority, and had some movement this week. Stormwater management systems. This is SB 810 is the one that requires the MS4s to do annual inspections and send those reports to emergency management. It has made it to the floor of the Senate, and there is no companion in the House. So this bill was an orphan. It does not mean there's no mechanism for something happening. The language could theoretically be amended onto a different bill. Once bills start to pass back and forth in messages, once bills are on the floor, and this one is on the floor in the Senate. Springs restoration. This is it's a domestic wastewater treatment facility bill addressing AWT requirements and reuse or reclaim requirements inside priority springs priority focus areas. It is on the floor of the Senate, and the companion bill, which is also run by Connerly, is also on the floor in the House. So this looks like it's going to go. I would give this a pretty high likelihood since it's on the floor at this time in the session in both chambers. Mitigation banks is just passed this week, the last committee in the House, and is headed to the floor. The companion has made it through the first committee and is on the second committee stop. So there's still a path forward in the Senate. This is the mitigation bank bill that allows somebody who needs credits to go outside of the service area where the impact is occurring and purchase a credit from a bank in an adjacent or distant service area by paying a premium, by basically buying extra credits. This bill is intended to align it with a Corps of Engineers or federal wetland mitigation. I think it's a policy that allows them to do that. And it's still kind of getting some pushback from the environmental community, but is moving, at least in the House. The DAX bill, S100, SB 700, this is the one that has a bunch of things for DAX. It has some doji things in there for sure, but buried in here is the one that says you can't add amendments to drinking water supply. This is the kill the fluoride bill. It is on the last stop in the Senate, and the companion 651 is also on the last stop. So still kind of making its way forward. Water access facilities is 735 has passed the House, meaning it has already voted through the House of Representatives and has been received over in the Senate. This is for the clean marine manufacturers category for submerged land leases. There's some stuff in there for boat hauling facilities and things like that. So if you're in the coastal waterfront development, marine manufacturing, or public access to waters, then that's a bill for you. Take a look at that. Brownfields is on the last stop in the House and the Senate. I know it's been calendared next week, so it's still making its way forward. I think this bill is going to pass. I know there's a lot of things in here for a lot of different people, including local governments. They like it. It expands brownfield tax credit eligibility to local governments up to this year, and opens up some other categories of cleanup facility or cleanup work to brownfield credit. So it's I think been pretty popular. Not a lot of really no adverse comments, and unanimous votes at each stop so far. So the brownfields is looking good. Here's 1169 water management districts. We talked about that already. This is the House Connerly's companion bill. It's in Ways and Means, which is the second stop for this bill in the House. The One Water bill is it's on its last stop in the House. The companion hasn't moved, and I learned this week, I was on a One Water Commission call, and I learned this week that because this is not really a policy bill, it's more about a statement of kind of legislative support for this concept, that the Senate intends to basically publish it in the Senate Journal, and that would give it a way to be kind of in the record as the position of the Senate. I don't know how they square that up, and somebody smarter than me on the process would need to tell me how you square up a bill that goes to the floor on one side, and on the other side it's just in the Senate Journal. But maybe it could be brought up in the House and passed out of the House. I just thought that was a lifeline from somebody. Distributed wastewater treatment. This made it through State Affairs, the last stop in the House, and the companion is also on the last stop. It's calendared for Tuesday afternoon, so it will be headed to the floor in both chambers next week. This looks like a pretty good chance of passage this year. This is DAX. We talked about this already. It's on the last stop in the Senate. This is the companion bill we'd already talked about. Special districts, which we hadn't talked about yet. This, again, this is a bit of a doji bill. It's got a lot of things in here for independent special districts and community development districts, but also it has this provision in here that it abolishes soil and water conservation districts and transfers those program responsibilities and staff over to DAX. That is on the second stop in the House, but the companion is not moving. So not sure what that means for this bill, but probably means it's not going to go. Here's the Senate bill, distributed wastewater treatment. We already talked about that. That's scheduled for fiscal policy on Tuesday. Administrative procedures. This bill, I think, is looking good for passage. This is the bill that requires that agencies that have a rule that triggers the ratification requirements and has to do a statement of estimated regulatory costs, that CERC process has to go through something like a rulemaking. There has to be public notice. The CERC can receive public comment, and that CERC has to pass all of that before it can be submitted as part of a ratification package. And then again, this was criticism of Overdorf and Grawl about the CERC for the stormwater ratification package last year. Brownfields we talked about. This is the House companion. Springs restoration we already talked about. That's the companion bill. Phosphate mining lands we've already talked about. Waste facilities. This is one we haven't talked about yet. This is the bill that would prohibit that incineration facility. I think in Miami-Dade County, prohibits a certain type of facility in a certain location. It is on the second stop in the Senate, and the companion's not moving. So it's starting to look like a dead bill. Release of conservation easements. This is actually in the Senate. this bill as a standalone bill in the House, uh, this language, the release of conservation easement language, is actually inside the mitigation bill, which is already talked about. So I think this is a pretty good chance of moving forward. They'll have to amend this into the to get it in the same format at some point, either on the House or on the floor in messages or at this last stop in rules. But this looks like it's going to move forward. And just since we hadn't talked about the conservation easement issue yet, particularly for the folks in South Florida Water Management District, this has been a complaint that South Florida Governing Board made it kind of known to district staff that they did not want to release conservation easements, and kind of don't bring those requests to us. That didn't sit well with kind of the development industry that is entitled to have their request heard. So this, creates a statutory, essentially entitlement to present your conservation easement releases to the district, and is provided you meet the criteria in this bill about replacing that conservation easement with an easement of equal or better value in the same basin, blah, blah, blah. But you're entitled to do that. So that's, again, been wrapped up into the mitigation bill on the House side. This is the recycling bill. We haven't talked much about this in the prior calls. There's not a ton in here that's really substantive, in my opinion. It does change the way certain commercial recycling is counted towards the state's 75% recycling goal. It is on the last stop in the House. I don't think the Senate bill has moved, however. This drilling bill, this is an oil drilling bill by Senator Corey Simon. This is really just, it has no House companion. It is at the second stop in the Senate, probably isn't going to move anymore. There's no House companion. This is really about him, making a statement to represent his constituents who are really upset about the exploration well in the Apalachicola River Basin up here in the Panhandle. The coastal resiliency bill, this is actually, it's down far on the list, but that's because it's already kind of through. It's on the floor in the House, and it has completely passed the Senate. So this is, really close to being passed all the way through. Looks like it's definitely, well, I won't say anything is definite at this time, but looks really good for passage this year. Administrative procedures, we talked about this already. It's passed the Senate already. This is that ACEC bill we just talked about a few minutes ago. Waste incineration is the companion to the bill we talked about just a couple of minutes ago about the waste to energy facility in Miami-Dade that people don't like, and they're trying to prevent it from happening. This is the companion of that. And then finally, kind of this last group here. Well, it's too soon to say that. All right, so the building and plumbing permits for septic tanks, this is in the last stop in the House. There's no movement at all in the Senate, so I don't think this bill by Rep. Connerly is going to pass the legislature this year, but it did move pretty well in the House. The Senate mitigation banking bill is kind of the rest of the mitigation banking bill that, combined with the conservation easements bill, together matches the House or completes the House mitigation bank companion. This is on the second stop in the Senate. Again, one of these bills on the Senate side can make it to the floor, and the rest of it can kind of get combined at that stop, or it can get combined in one or the other stops in committee to get brought in line with the House version. So this is looking pretty good. And then now I'm going to say there's a bunch of things down here that have not, you see this introduced. That means the bill was filed but never got scheduled or assigned to any committees. There's these bills kind of from here on down, I would say, are dead, with the exception of, I think there's one in here that just hasn't moved for a while because it's already passed. But all these ones that say introduced or, first reading. These are bills that haven't made enough progress, and are, down here at the bottom are some withdrawals. So these are all kind of dead bills down here. All right, so we got 10 minutes left. Who's got questions?
I just posted that if we could get the updated Excel spreadsheet, that would be appreciated.
We'll do, of course. SBA 10. Yep. So for Nick, yeah, the public. So the question, the comment is about public sector concerns about SB 810. Understood, loud and clear. That was made loud and clear by the, I think, Association of Counties, League of Cities, the Stormwater Association. They all spoke out against 810. This is, requiring mandatory annual inspections of your stormwater infrastructure. It was the pushback was really about the unfunded mandate. But again, there's no House companion. Not sure it's going to go. I don't think there's a tremendous threat of that being a law this year, but appreciate that comment. Any more questions or comments? 1187 service lateral assessment and rehab. No, I did not. I don't know why. I've never cared about that, but maybe I should care about that. What I'm hearing is I should care about that. So 1187 is service lateral assessment and rehab. It's a utility bill, of course, and related to the wastewater industry. So I think there's enough overlap to cover it in environment. So let me see if I can look that up real quick. Let's see if there are any other questions. If not, I'll look up 1187 real quick and we can talk about that together. 861 AWT. Hang on just one second. Let me get through 1187 and go back to 861. Yeah, I think, yeah, to answer your question, 861, I believe is dead. That's an easier question to answer. 61, I think it's down here. Yeah. Correct. Dead to the dead. That's for you, Alan. All right, 1187. So this bill is probably dead, hasn't moved at all in the House. And the Senate version has made it through one stop. It's on the second stop. I don't think it's made enough progress for the lateral assessment and rehabilitation bill to pass this year. Any more questions? All right, well, I'm happy to give everybody some time back on their Friday morning. I hope everybody has a wonderful weekend. And as always, if anybody has questions, just shoot me an email or Laura, and we'll try to get them answered. Have a great weekend.
Thank you,
Thank
Jeff.
you.
Thanks,
You
everybody.
too.
Thanks, bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.